How do I back up OneDrive files? Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Here's the question that I got from a friend recently. I have a question about OneDrive and the backups. The files actually exist in the cloud, right? So if I want them to be backed up when I back up my PC, I have to bring them down to the hard drive, yes? I find the whole setup for OneDrive confusing. Indeed, it is confusing. The files are in the cloud, yes, but they're also on your PC, except when they're not. And that's the key here. That's what's so incredibly important to understand about how OneDrive works, especially when you want to back up the files you have contained in OneDrive. Now, a lot of people think of OneDrive as a backup. I consider it a part of a backup strategy, but by itself, it is not a backup. Why is that? Because it acts like one place. And if something is in only one place, it is not backed up. What do I mean by it acting like one place? Well, if you delete a file in your OneDrive, it gets deleted from the cloud and from all the other machines that you happen to have that same OneDrive account synced to. If you make a change to a file, well, that change happens on all of the other places that file might live in your OneDrive account. If you happen to corrupt a file, say by ransomware, then that change is replicated to the cloud and to all the other machines. In other words, it's as if they were only one thing, because every time you make a change, it happens everywhere. Now, yes, I understand that OneDrive and some of the other solutions that provide this kind of synchronization will occasionally have safety nets for accidental deletion and even ransomware in some cases. But that doesn't change the fact that if you lose your OneDrive account for some reason, say a hacker gets access to it and they delete everything in your OneDrive and you never get your account back, well, all of your files are gone unless you have them backed up somewhere else. And in fact, backing up your PC regularly, which is what I recommend, is one way to ensure that all of those files are backed up in addition to being in OneDrive. So, why might the files not actually be on your PC? There are two features in OneDrive that are designed to save you disk space. For example, I have a terabyte of pictures in cloud storage. I have a laptop that has a half a terabyte hard drive. I can't put those two together, right? I can't use that cloud storage on that laptop because there's not enough room for everything it contains. There are two features that allow me to manage this, and I want to go over those two features so that you understand exactly where your files are, which ones are on your PC, which ones are actually getting backed up by your PC's backup, and for those that aren't, what you need to think about doing instead. So let's have a quick look at OneDrive here in Windows 11. I'm going to right-click on the OneDrive icon in the notification area and then click on Settings. The very first feature is right here in the Account tab. It's this thing called Choose Folders. And the name kind of implies exactly what we're going to be looking at. If I take a look at the list of the top level folders in my OneDrive right now, everything is checked, which means that everything in all of these folders exists on this PC's hard drive. If I back up this PC, I will be backing up everything that's contained in my OneDrive. All the files are there. But if I need to save space, like my photos, for example, well, I can do that. For example, let's take this transfer folder here at the bottom. If I now uncheck that and hit OK, two things will happen. One is the transfer folder still exists in OneDrive on the cloud. But if I take a look on my PC at my OneDrive, you'll see that the transfer folder is nowhere to be seen. If I go online, it's still there. And if I go to other PCs that have it marked as being downloaded on that PC, they're all still there. It's just this specific PC that no longer sees the transfer folder because I have it unchecked. Now, of course, I can come back here and check it so that everything will get downloaded again. But if I'm managing space, that may not be what I want to do. So this is the first place. Files that are in this choose folders scheme that are explicitly not being made available on this PC will not get backed up when I back up this PC. Okay, great. We'll click on OK. We've got the transfer folder. It's gone. It's not on this PC. It's elsewhere. The other feature that we need to talk about is buried a little bit deeper. If I click on Sync and Backup and I go down to the advanced settings here at the bottom, you'll see that there is something called Files on Demand. And the default for Files on Demand is on. What does that mean? Well, what it means is if I go to my Word documents, I'll just go to this folder here, you can see that these 3 files, they're here in my OneDrive, but they have this empty cloud icon. What that means is while the file is listed here on my PC, the data for that file has not been downloaded. Doesn't exist on this PC. It's in the cloud. It's in any other PC that happens to have it downloaded, but it is not on this PC. So if I were to back up this PC, I would not be backing up the data associated with each of these files. Now, there's 2 ways to resolve that issue. One, the way the feature works is if you were to open the document, which I can just do here, double-clicking on it, and I'll close that. You'll notice now that the icon has changed. It's now a circled checkmark, a green circled checkmark. What that means is that the file, which was on demand, was downloaded when I tried to open it. That's the on-demand part, right? The file's data is downloaded when you try to use it, which is fine. And in fact, in some cases, by being in this state, if you don't use it for a very long time, my understanding is that there may be scenarios where it will go back to this cloud-only state. But the bottom line here is now, if I were to back up this PC, I would get the full contents of this test example 1 file because it's been downloaded on demand, but I would not get the contents of examples 2 and 3 because they're still cloud only. Now, I could open each one and get the data downloaded that way. The other thing I could do is I could right-click on the file, and down here with OneDrive, just above here, I can say always keep on this device. What that means is the data will be downloaded and will always be present on this device. So even without opening it and without doing anything other than that, this file will now always be on the device, and when I back it up, it'll be backed up in its entirety. So you can see here now I have the 3 possible states of files. Test example 1 is on my machine, but it's only on my machine because I tried to open it and it was downloaded on demand. Test example 2 is on my machine because I said, always keep it on my machine. And test example 3, it's listed on my machine, but the data is not yet on my machine. And if I back up this machine, I will not get the full contents of test example 3. So you can manage it at that level. You can do individual files, and everything that I've just done here will actually apply to folders as well. If you mark a folder as always be on this machine, then everything in that folder and all of its subfolders will be always on this machine. But honestly, for most folks, where you've got enough disk space, you're not really trying to manage your disk space that hard, there's an easier solution. I'm going to go back to my OneDrive settings here, and I'm going to click on this thing that says download all files. So what's going to happen is for all of the files throughout my OneDrive, everything is going to be downloaded to this PC. And you can see that once it stops synchronizing, all of these icons turn into the solid green with a white check mark. That means that all of those files are here. That means that when I back up this machine, everything in my OneDrive will be included. If I take a look at my Word documents, they were in those 3 separate states earlier. And in fact, you can see the previous instance of File Explorer has also changed, but they are now always on this machine. I believe that for most people, the right thing to do when you set up OneDrive is to come to this Settings, Sync and Backup, Advanced, go to Files on Demand, and click on Download All Files. That way, you know that everything will be on your PC, and when you back up your PC, it will include everything. Very straightforward, and doesn't require that you keep track of or even understand this whole on-demand thing at all. It just means you need enough space on your hard disk to contain your entire OneDrive, and you're good to go. Now, if you don't, right, if you're in that situation that I'm in where I've got a cloud storage that is larger than the hard drive I happen to have, there are a few solutions. But the 2 are, 1, realize it. Be aware that if you're not doing something else to make sure that those files are backed up, they're not backed up. They're in one place, and you're running that risk of losing them. The solution that I take is to use a second machine. I have another machine. In fact, the machine that I'm using right now to record this video has actually a few hard disks associated with it, but one of them is a 5 or 6 terabyte external spinning metal platter hard disk on which I have my OneDrive, my Dropbox, my Google Drive, my Proton Drive. All of them are on that drive, and all of them are set to download everything all the time. There's no on-demand associated with any of those things. And what that means is when that drive gets backed up, by definition, it includes everything in those services. Now, of course, you're probably not using 5 different cloud services like I am. That's fine. All you really need somewhere is a computer with a hard disk, and it can be external, big enough to hold your entire OneDrive. You don't even have to use that computer for anything else, to be honest. It just has to be running, and it has to be backing up regularly. Once you've got it backing up regularly, and you know that you've got all of your OneDrive files downloaded because they are not on demand, you're done. You have your OneDrive backed up completely. I hope that helps clarify what's happening when you use OneDrive and these fancy space-saving features. For updates, for comments, for questions, for links related to this topic and more, visit askleo.com/166426. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.